Welcome to FYI. I'm Barry ZeVAN, and I'm thrilled to say today we have what I would call, he would debate it, a Twin Cities radio icon named Dave Lee. He's also a TV Emmy Award winner. And Dave Lee is the host of the WCCO Radio Morning News. And Dave, welcome to FYI.
Barry, thank you, and it's great to be with you because I know your career. I've known it for a long time, and you've established yourself, but I think the longevity of what you've done is quite remarkable.
Wow.
And if I were a young journalism student, and I wish I were, I would take a long, hard look at how you did what you did and what you're still doing. It's pretty amazing. So congratulations to you.
Oh, wow. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Now the show is over. No.
Well, I should really ask you questions.
After that, yes. Oh, thank you so much. Deeply appreciated. Your work is deeply appreciated. I remember the day you started at WCCO Radio.
Wow, back in '89.
29 years ago.
Yeah.
And you replaced and succeeded Boone and Erickson, who were mega icons in this market, and you have established yourself as a mega icon too, so well liked for so many reasons. Number one, you're very unpretentious. I think that maybe your North Dakota roots.
Well, I have much to be humble about.
Not really, and you have some fantastic stories about some really great people with whom you've had relationships, not the least among whom we both share a relationship with former Vice President Mondale. And I'd like to actually start on that particular trip you made to Japan when he was ambassador to Japan. Please tell us about that, and then we'll get back to the very beginnings of your career.
Well, that was in the mid-'90s, Barry. And that was, we arrived there to see Fritz at the embassy and stayed at the embassy for a week and did our show from the embassy. That was right after those sarin gas attacks, if you remember those in the news, in the subway there in Tokyo. And we arrived probably a week later. And the first night we're there, we went out on a daily walk with Fritz and the security detail around the embassy and around that area of Tokyo. And then Fritz proceeds to tell us on the first night we're there that he's on the hit list of this guy who I don't think they had caught yet. And I said, why would you tell us that now instead of the last day we're here? He's a wonderful man, just a great friend. And so we spent a week there and we went to the Egg, as they called it, which was a Tokyo Dome, which frankly was built the same way our Metrodome was built. And I can only assume it was the same architectural firm. So we went there to see some baseball because Shane Mack, who was a World Series champion with the Twins in '91, was then playing in Tokyo. So we went to see Shane and took him to McDonald's with us. We ordered a value meal number 1 or 2 or 3, whatever, and we had a big bit on that we carried live. And it was a wonderful opportunity. Plus, it was a time the car makers were in the news. And it was really interesting and a fun time and a little bit tense time, but what an enjoyable time. But Fritz Mondale, so well respected in Japan when we were there. People loved him. And he's just one of those, talk about unassuming, from Elmore, Minnesota. And you, sir, of course, was inauguration night. UMC'd that event, so you know him quite well. And I still talk to him. I just talked to him on his birthday. You get blessed with some of your relationships. There were relationships in this business, as you know, that may not be, you might be using one another, for lack of a better term, and there are real ones, and they're rare and they're nice, and that one with Fritz, I'll always treasure.
Oh yeah, he's very genuine.
Yes, funny.
Very kindly, he endorsed the back of my book, which I'll reference at the end of the show. But yeah, to MC his inaugural banquet was one of the great honors of my life. And I just, as you say, you can't say enough good about him. He's a real statesman, and I think that is something that certainly is lacking, has been lacking for many years in this country, having a statesman in such a high position.
I believe in, whether you're right, left, in the middle, whatever you believe politically, I do believe Fritz helped to kind of change the position of the vice presidency. because President Carter used him. And regardless of whatever your political affiliation was, you have to just realize that he was kind of a trendsetter, I think.
Yes, absolutely. Tell us about how you began in broadcast. First of all, your voice is tremendous. Was that what people said, you should be in broadcasting?
Yeah, I think people say you shouldn't be in broadcasting. I remember when I started, and the first job, I went to the college radio station of the university I attended, and I wanted to see if I could work part-time. Needed the money, obviously we did, or you're broke, you got to have something to do. And that'd be a fun way to make some money. They said, well, first of all, wouldn't pay you the first year. Second year, you might be good enough. Maybe by the third year, you might be able to have a part-time money. Well, obviously, I couldn't afford that. I had to get something. So I couldn't get a job there, so I went to a commercial radio station right after I was rejected by the university station and got hired there.
In which town was that?
This was in East Grand Forks. And so I met the morning guy, Buffalo Bob. And he told me, he said, you want the secret to longevity in this business, kid? And I said, yeah. He says, whiskey and cigarettes. It'll rough up that voice. You'll be doing commercial work. And so that was his advice for a successful career in radio. But that was it was a small little radio station out in the country, but it was a great place to learn. You did every possible job. You had to, from cleaning the garbage. And then, Barry, you had to have your FCC license. And I remember that wasn't an easy test back in the day. And you had to do the meter readings and do a lot of different things. So, there was a lot of work involved, but it was so much fun. And so you get out of college and you have opportunities perhaps at better jobs, at better benefits, at way better hours. But this was so much fun. And so when you can, as we say, if you can find something that's your passion, you really don't have to work a day in your life.
That's right.
So.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me of the licenses, because I didn't have a first-class license. I had a third-class license. All I remember, I didn't even remember there was a second-class license.
Yeah.
You either had a third class or a first class. You had a first class, right?
Yeah, and the second class was useless, they said.
Oh, I see.
Remember? So why I don't know why you had a second class, but they said it won't do any good. Yeah, so you had to take the meter readings and you had to do all of that stuff. And I don't remember when that disappeared, but I remember it was a little bit nerve-wracking taking the test back in the day.
So from East Grand Forks, how did the ladder go up?
Well, at the expense of you getting bored by this.
Never.
I met a girl and I moved to Fargo, where she was going to school, college, and we knew each other from our hometown, of course. But I got a $500 raise from going from East Grand Forks to Fargo, and I thought, ooh, I am really something.
Yeah.
But along with that, I worked midnight to 6.
Yes.
But what a wonderful opportunity, working those horrendous hours, to learn to be creative. Because at midnight to 6, they just wanted the station on there. They didn't really care how good or bad you were. So you could experiment, you could do characters, you could do multiple voices, sky was the limit. Mm-hmm. And it was really a blessing. And I took full advantage of it. Would I like to work it again? I don't know. But back then it worked out pretty well, so in a strange way. And then we got married, and we're still married.
Oh, that's wonderful. Such great freedom. If I may interject a personal midnight to 6 story.
Yeah, please do.
I was working in Seattle, Tacoma, and television during the week, but I needed more money, so I got weekends on Country KO, a 50,000-watt station in Seattle, which played mostly to the sailors in Bremerton, Washington. And it was country music, which I hated. But I purposely turned the volume up as loud as I could in the studio while I was playing the music, so I would get used to it. And by the time I did it for almost a year, and for that year, I finally got to know all the country people and so forth. Actually, our program director married Tammy Wynette in later years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then Bashful Bobby Wooten was our other program guy, and he...
yeah, we all had a nickname.
Yeah, and he was one of the co-creators of, what was that country show that was like Laugh-In?
Hee Haw.
Hee Haw. He was one of the co-creators. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And George Ritchie was our program director, who did marry Tammy Wynette in later years.
George Ritchie, I know the name. Wow, those are some heavy hitters. What's interesting too, the country people, and I worked at a country station for a while, always so accommodating.
Oh yeah.
The country entertainers always so wonderful to work with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that music, I'll never forget, at midnight to 6. It began as torture and ended up as okay.
Yeah.
Long as Steve Cannon used to say, "I got the money."
Yeah. Well, when you're young like that and you get that radio job, you want to be rock and roll because that's hip and the girls like that.
Yeah.
But country wasn't quite the same at the time. Now that's certainly transformed through the years, hasn't it?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all crossover now. I would. It's what they say anyway.
The first concert I took my wife to was Merle Haggard.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And she was not a country fan. But it worked out, I guess.
You're still together.
Yes.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
So from East Grand Forks, you went to Fargo, and then how did you get to the Twin Cities?
Well, they
And don't tell me you drove a car.
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, the car I drove wouldn't have made it to the Twin Cities, frankly. They had, you know, I liked it there. My buddies were there, kids from college were there. So my wife and I grew up in that area, loved it, still love it to this day. So when I had the first call from CCO to see if I'd be interested in coming to work, I came down for an interview and said I'm not interested. After we chatted and they called and I said, yeah, I like what I'm doing. Well, I'm not, you know, I never said I was smart. So I didn't realize, first of all, I didn't look at the finances. I needed some financial work, but to me, I was just having fun again. I just liked what I was doing. We were happy, playing a lot of ball with my buddies, you know, and doing all the things you like to do. So when they called, I said no. And I didn't realize at the time that, you know, I probably shouldn't have said no, but I did. So then a couple years later, they came back and said, are you ready to go now? And my wife said, I don't want you to say one day that I should have talked to them. So I did, and then they hired me, and then they haven't been able to get rid of me like a bad cold.
Well, that's good. I hope they keep having that cold for a long time.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah. Flu and everything else.
You're never secure in our business, are you? So.
Well, thank goodness you do have that security, and you're so well liked. You told me you had a great Tom Brokaw story.
I had Tom on the air one time, and that's the great thing about CCO. You get to talk to so many people, and so you're blessed. You've been put in a beautiful position to do a lot of different things, and so people would come on the air to CCO. You'd like to think it was you, but you know it was the strength of those call letters and those 50,000 watts, as I call it, the 50,000 watt blowtorch. But Tom Brokaw told me a story one time about how he applied to be the farm director at one time at CCO, and they said no. You know, and I think he kind of enjoyed telling his story because he was very humble and fun about it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that was before my time.
Tom is very down to earth. Not to inject another personal story, which we do occasionally on this show, but Tom was one of these people who was interviewed for a documentary I was producing about the 20th century, and he said that he sometimes didn't have a big fondness for Minnesota because he was also turned down at a station in Mankato. And they said, it's because of your voice.
Huh.
Well,
whiskey and cigarettes, you should have done it.
That's right. But all the mistakes people make, I mean, the stories, of course, are legion about people like Burt Reynolds and Clint Eastwood who were told they would never make it in the business.
Right.
Here they go.
Yeah.
So don't pay attention to people who say you're not going to make it. Right?
No, I heard that more than once. Yeah, you just got to do what you think is right.
You've won 3 Emmys for sportscasting. Tell us about that, please.
Well, you know, that's just dumb luck. I was in the right place, right time, in the right game. So, you know, I love doing play-by-play, and I have done it for years. I love the mix of what I do. I get to do news in the morning and traffic, weather, whatever's breaking, and then I get to do play-by-play still, which I love, and so I got a few for that. But that was, you know, a lot of that's dictated by the game. So if you have a great game, it lends itself to an Emmy.
Have you ever had the desire to strictly go into play-by-play?
I have not. You know, there's opportunities arise, as you know, in our business all over the place, whether they're good or bad, or whether they're, I don't know if they're any better, but first of all, I love Minneapolis, St. Paul. I can't imagine I would ever move. Once we were here, I would never move. I can't. But I had a number of opportunities to do sports full-time play-by-play, and I said no, because I like the variety I have.
Mm-hmm.
So I love doing it part-time. I do it in the fall, a little bit of football here and there, and basketball in the winter, but it's fun doing it part-time. I fielded for the Twins for a number of years when Herb or John couldn't make a game. Absolutely loved it. Love, particularly baseball. But just 3-4 games here on a trip, that was enough for me.
Mm-hmm. So. What about your reaction to the Vikings this past year?
Wow.
Painful as it may be, any thoughts about why they came apart, how they came apart in that Eagles game?
Well, sure, I have my opinions, but I'm sure, like all of us fans, we have reasons to think certain things could have been done differently. But they had a wonderful season. It was great to watch. I love the Adam Thielen story. I love the Case Keenum story. It was just fun to watch them. I was there the day that they won that Diggs made that fantastic play at the end, and Keenum made that wonderful pass. That was fun. But here's the problem, Barry. When you grow up here, whether you want to be a Viking fan or not, you are. So if I wanted to say I'm not going to cheer for them this year, sorry, I can't. And it dictates my day. It dictates my mood. I absolutely love the Vikings. I grew up a diehard Viking fan, and as many times as we haven't won the big one, and you think I'm going to cheer for somebody else, that'll never happen. Mm-hmm.
There's only one other market with which I'm familiar, my hometown, born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and of course it was the Pirates and the Steelers.
And the Johnstown minor league hockey team.
That about which I didn't know.
Yeah, from Slapshot, the Newman movie.
Oh my goodness, didn't even
well,
remember
I had a friend
that.
who was the goalie in that movie. So.
Oh my gosh, that's terrific. But I was going to say, somebody said to me there are only 2 metropolitan areas in the country who are really, really diehard sports fans, and that would be Pittsburgh and the Twin Cities, because even when we're losing, everybody shows up. And I remember when I was a kid in the 1940s, when the Pirates were playing at Forbes Field and losing every game in the history of the planet, that stadium was filled. Filled.
Yeah.
Never gave up. And then, of course, the great Mazeroski win in 1960.
I was there when Bill went in the Hall of Fame because he went in with Puck and Kirby Puckett and Dave Winfield.
Wow.
And they went in the Hall of Fame together, and Bill Mazeroski went in that year for Pittsburgh. I remember there were 4 guys that went in, and it was really a pretty special moment to be there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wild.
And Mazeroski, I remember that.
There was a friend of mine who had she was from Pittsburgh here, but her husband had never been there. And so the first time he ever went for a business trip, took a cab from the airport to downtown. In Pittsburgh, we'd say downtown. and the cab driver said, what do you think of the Parts and the Stillers? The Parts and the Stillers? The Pirates and the Steelers,
Sure.
of course. But the Pittsburgh accent. Anybody watching in Pittsburgh, we're only having fun.
But that's the same way. Here it's Twins, it's Vikings, it's Wolves, it's the Wild. Used to be the North Stars. I went to a lot of North Star games through the years, and it's, that's just what you're it's just part of your DNA, man. I love all our Minnesota teams, and you die with them when they don't win, and you're just excited about them. Like this morning when LeBron last night made a winning shot against our Timberwolves, in what was quite a good game. But if you think I'm going to play LeBron's winning shot on my show, forget it.
I love it.
So.
Well, it's wonderful to have seen literally the world these days, who can see everything, see how wonderful the Twin Cities and that fantastic stadium are.
Yeah, it showed well for the Super Bowl, showed beautifully as well for the Ryder Cup. A couple of wonderful events where the area was showcased.
Yeah. Yeah, we have nothing about which to be ashamed.
Gosh, I remember Barry back in, as you do, 91, 92, we had the Stanley Cup Finals, we had the World Series, we had the Final Four, we had, was it the U.S. Open maybe, or the PGA Championship, I can't remember which one. We had, everything was going on.
Yeah.
91, 92 was absolutely fabulous. That's another thing, too. Somebody asked me, we're digressing, and I don't mean to divert this.
Please do.
I was you mentioned the Viking game, and somebody said to me, the noise level at the new stadium, how was it? I said, well, where I was sitting, they gave you, if you wanted, free earplugs. I said, I don't want them, because my hearing shot from the ears with those headphones anyway. But as I sat at the game, I said, that was loud, but there is no way that was as loud as the Twins winning the World Series in '87-91. That hurt. I worked the '91 games. I was at the '87 Game 7, and that physically hurt your ears.
Wow.
It was that loud in that Metrodome. So the new stadium's loud. To me, it was never as loud as that Metrodome when they won.
And then, of course, we have Lindsey Vonn, world's greatest skier.
Lindsey Vonn, so I was talking to her one day and asked her, working, I said, after you work out, what do you eat? And she said, well, my trainer gives me chocolate milk and a banana. So that's what I eat now. Well, if she's doing it, I'm going to start doing it.
And you're going to become the world's greatest man skier, male skier.
Yeah, I'm going to go to Buck Hill and start skiing now, where she's trained.
We had Buck Hill. There's another one, too, about which people don't think. I raced against, and it was a fun race, a celebrity race, Jean-Claude Keeley and Spider Savage.
I hope you beat those guys.
Actually, I beat Spider.
You did?
I couldn't
Wow.
believe it. Yeah, that was a fluke, for sure.
That's impressive.
But Billy Kidd, who is a dear friend, just beyond dear friend, he even cooked my honeymoon dinner for me in Steamboat Springs.
Wow.
Way back in the day. But anyway, it was just with Billy here. He comes here a couple times a year.
Really?
Yeah, to REI. But anyway, Billy made fun of me that night, though, because I missed a gate. And he said, "How can you remember all those numbers, but you missed that gate?" Fine.
Yeah.
Fine. Rub it in.
Yeah. I like it.
Do you ski?
A little bit. I'm not very good, not accomplished, but.
Yeah. CCO has such an incredible history. A lot of people who are watching thanks to this wonderful station and putting us on YouTube, watching around the world. They don't know that the Washburn-Crosby Company is the reason WCCO was named what it was. W for Washburn, C for Crosby, and CO, of course, for company. And in very good years, we had a place in France, and
Wow.
and near Cannes, or right, actually the suburb of Cannes, and
Can't get much prettier than that. Huh?
No, it's pretty. And the concierge said, and she didn't speak much English. She saw Minneapolis the first time I signed in, and says, "Oh, Wheaties, Wheaties."
Well, the first singing jingle on radio in this country was Wheaties on WCCO.
Oh, wow. Breakfast of Champions.
Yeah, yeah. So there you go. For a little trivia question, or a little trivia answer.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, I actually, they were very kind enough, because she had said that. Remember when they were putting people's pictures on the boxes, especially the sports heroes? Well, I had a friend at General Mills, and I said, "Here's a picture of this beautiful girl. She was very pretty. Her name was Chantal." "Only teasing, dear." Anyway, my wife's watching that. She said, "Oh, my God." Anyway, but Chantal, I brought her picture to my friend at General Mills, and they put her picture on a box of Wheaties, just one box, and they encased it in plexiglass, and I sent it over to Chantal. And she said that's one of the best gifts she had ever received.
That's a home run, for lack of a better term. I mean, with the sports figures they put on there.
For sure.
Yeah. There's another neat historical nugget, as long as you mention that, Barry.
Please do.
Hubert Humphrey is on the phone with Boone and Erickson. Raj and Charlie, by the way, I know we're radio legends, but off the air they were even nicer. And I was blessed to have those two as mentors. I can't say enough about them, because I didn't want to work the morning show. They're the guys that just made the decision, not me. But Hubert Humphrey's on the line with them from Washington as a senator. And all of a sudden, as he's on, and we have you'll have to listen to the audio of this, because I have the audio. All of a sudden, there's a CBS News bulletin where they come in and they announce Lyndon Johnson has just said Hubert Humphrey will be his vice president candidate. Right now, he's trying to reach the vice president, unable to do so, but CBS News has learned, and they go on, and they break into their conversation with Hubert to carry that. They come out of it and they say, "Well, Senator Humphrey, we probably should let you go." Because I don't know if there was even call waiting or messaging at the time. You had to have your phone open. So Hubert had to quit his interview at the time, and he's laughing about it. He said, well, I better take the call or I'll miss the train. And so they hung up so that Lyndon Johnson could call him and tell him he's going to be the vice president.
That's phenomenal.
Right on the air. It's a great piece of history.
What history? Yeah, yeah.
So that's the nature of that radio station.
Wow. Well, it is. It's unique.
Yeah.
It's totally unique. There are other stations. I mean, the first station on which I was KDKA in Pittsburgh,
Oh,
which
wow.
was the world's
Same
first
heritage
first station,
Yeah.
and first commercial station. And you know, you think about things like that, but for CCO, I remember even as a kid in Pittsburgh listening to Cedric Adams.
Oh, I believe it. The
Yeah,
signal was
because
huge.
he was on CBS radio as well as WCCO, but that's the first time I had ever heard of Minneapolis.
Really?
When I was about
Wow.
9 years old.
That's
yeah.
interesting.
And I said, what's that? Where is that?
Well, and of course, a great story about how the pilots would fly in and they'd say the lights would go off in town when Cedric finished his show at 10 or 10:30 or whatever that was. He was a powerful voice. It's,
Phenomenal.
yeah.
Well, so are you, and I can't thank you enough, Dave, for taking the time, making the time to be with us. Any thoughts for the Twins for this season?
Well, I'm excited they're back with us on CCO, and looking forward to that. I'll be down in spring training here real soon for about a week or so, and just getting a good feel of it. I think, you know, Paul Molitor's a good friend. I really like him and his knowledge of baseball, and I like what they've done in the offseason with their pitching, and I'm hoping they do what they did last year, only a few more wins, because what he did last year was absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
And gets in the playoffs. And I think some of the other teams, it's very similar to what the Astros did, except they won it all with a lot of homegrown talent. And you wonder this year if a lot of teams aren't looking at, particularly at Houston, but also the Twins saying, okay, how did these guys do what they did? Because they did it with the kids they drafted and some great moves they made.
Sure.
So I think they'll be fine. Either way, I'll be at the games. It doesn't matter. Like you said, we're sports fans here in Minnesota. We go win or lose.
Amen.
And I think they'll win.
Well, we've won having you on the show.
Well,
Thank you so much.
It's kind of you to have me, and hopefully next time around you can book a little better guest. But,
come
but
on.
I'm glad to fill the time.
You're great. Thanks so much,
Thanks,
Dave.
Barry.
And something else that's semi-great, not really great, my book. And it's Barry ZeVAN, My Life Among the Giants. Very blessed to have Vice President Mondale endorse it on the back. Sam Donaldson, my friend who has hosted 3 of my documentaries, also an endorser, and Rudy Maxa, who lives here but well-known worldwide. It's not the kind of book you think it might be. It's not name-dropping. It's names for which I've been blessed to have incredible relationships way from the beginning. When I started in broadcasting in 1943 at the age of 5.5 as a boy singer, and there are lots of fun stories in there, but mostly stories these incredible people have told me. So if you want to take a look at it, it's on Amazon, and again, Barry ZeVAN, My Life Among the Giants. And we're proud and pleased and very blessed to have great guests on this show, so I hope you'll keep watching. And until next time, thanks for watching.